Warning, there may be explicit language in today's episode. Viewer discretion is advised.
We're going to get this out of the way now. We promise Dom will be back next week.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on. It's just our schedules don't match up. But yes.
We know that's why you all watch anyway. So.
Yeah, we know you guys don't care about us. But what you do care about is our guest this week. Debut on the Tailgate Talks official channel, and we can say that because, I forgot to tell you we rebranded the day before we went on the Critical Eye. Yes, Isaac Petkac is back on the show. Thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, good to be back.
Crazy time since the last time we saw you.
Yeah, so much going on.
Yeah, a lot. Of course, the first thing I say when you came in, I was like, yeah, last time I saw you, Kenny Pickett was a Steeler.
Yeah, well.
But,
yeah.
Let's go Justin Fields. Oh, nah, I hope Russ does well. But yes, more Shohei Ohtani news. Well, last time we talked about this, Alex, you said a lot about it. You read through it all, so let's see if you can do it again. So, yeah.
It's like reading a book. Okay. So, obviously, as Mike said, more Shohei Ohtani news related to his interpreter. So, the former interpreter and longtime friend of baseball megastar Shohei Ohtani surrendered to federal authorities Friday after allegedly pilfering $16 million from his famous companion to fuel his voracious appetite for illegal sports betting.
I did not.
Officials said.
Okay, I took this from ESPN, so I legitimately just copied and pasted it. I did not know that said that. Whoever wrote that.
Continuing, again, quote, this morning, Ipe Mizuhara surrendered to law enforcement and is in federal custody, end quote, the Department of Justice said in a news release. He was released on $25,000 bond. That's insane that he was only on a $25,000 bond after stealing $16 million, and required to surrender his passport. Okay, so he had to surrender, okay. He was also ordered to receive gambling addiction treatment. Yeah, because that's going to work. As part of the conditions of his release, the former interpreter appeared in court Friday afternoon wearing a white shirt, blue suit, and shackles around his ankles. Apparently, he's a murderer now. The judge overseeing the hearing granted a request by Mizuhara's attorney to have the shackles removed. Fair enough. Mizuhara's arraignment hearing, where he is expected to enter a plea, is scheduled for May 9th. Mizuhara faces a federal charge of bank fraud. Yikes. After making unauthorized transfers from Ohtani's bank account from November 2021 until January 2024. Wow, I didn't realize it was that long. U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada said Thursday. That's the end of that. Mizuhara even impersonated the superstar. I'm learning this as I'm reading it, so that's why there's so much emotion in my voice. Impersonated the superstar to try to get bank employees to approve enormous wire transfers, the prosecutor said. If convicted, Mizuhara could face up to 30 years in prison. CNN has reached out to Mizuhara's attorney for comment, and before it even scrolls down, I'm going to assume he declined. Hours after his former interpreter surrendered to law enforcement, Ohtani said he was very grateful at the Department of Justice's investigation, according to a statement given to CNN Friday by his representatives.
Wow. Okay. Let's break this down a little bit. I don't even know where to begin. $25,000 is crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Isaac, I don't know how much you covered, or if covered at this at all, but what is your thoughts on, I guess, the situation, and what are your thoughts on Ohtani, on basically Ohtani's side, kind of basically denying basically parts of this?
It's very interesting how this entire story played out, and the fact that even people who you think are your best friends don't necessarily have all the best intentions. I mean, the original story from Shohei Ohtani, when this whole thing came out and the story was published by ESPN in an exclusive, the story that was given was that Ippei Mizuhara essentially made a bad decision to gamble away $4 million, and his good pal Shohei was covering for him. That was the story.
Right.
And I think we all took it as, all right, Shohei doesn't necessarily understand the magnitude of what that means, but we can move past this. And I think once we found out that it was going to be worse than what it was, or at least Shohei found out, there was a very quick pivot into the storyline that Ohtani had. It became, hey, I'm just paying off my friend's debt, to he realizes that there's more to the story, and now it's okay, I've been duped. And I think when the attorneys and whatnot got into the entirety of the story, because keep in mind, Ippei Mizuhara agreed to do an interview with ESPN thinking that he wasn't going to have any sort of issue or any sort of consequence from saying his side of the story. And so when you look at the way that things transpired, I think this is truly a case of a great baseball player who thought he had a best friend that would be willing to do his finances for him, willing to do, of course, his translations for him, and didn't think anything of it. And this is a guy in Ippei Mizuhara who had a significant gambling debt, a significant gambling addiction, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars per week. I mean, this guy was making upwards of 25 to 30 bets per day. And so when you look at the way that this entire thing played out, I really do think it was a situation where Shohei Ohtani did not know that his friend was stealing from him until the day the story got released. And again, if he had known prior, I don't think Mizuhara would have been available for interview to ESPN. So it's a tough situation for Shohei. Will he recover from this? Of course.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
the greatest baseball
Yeah.
player in the world. He's going to make
Absolutely.
a ton of money. Of course, his contract's backloaded. But, it was very interesting the way the story played out, because it originally looked like this was a friendly offer to cover for some friend's debt, and then Shohei pivots. And I think for a time, the people and us in the media thought that this was a concern for Shohei, because he pivoted stories so quickly. Now we seem to know, or at least allegedly know, that there's more to the story than what meets the eye, and that's kind of scary for Mizuhara, who certainly, I think, will do jail time, and if not, is going to have to pay an extremely hefty fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Alex, you want to pay my debt?
I'm trying to pay mine.
Yeah, I feel like too, with a lot of the backlash Ohtani's gotten, from his people, the stuff people are saying about Ohtani himself. I feel like people see, and this is one of those cases of, you see a big name, you see the situation, but you don't read the facts, and you assume guilty. In most cases, I feel like there was some facts that people didn't see yet right away, and yeah, I think it's entirely possible and seems to be true that it was just like you said, Isaac, just a case where Ohtani genuinely did not know about this.
I think if there was any indication that Shohei Ohtani was guilty or knew about this, you wouldn't have seen the story or the Department of Justice come out with the papers and with the accusations on Ippei. Again, keep in mind, and I understand this isn't fair, Shohei Ohtani is the greatest player in baseball.
Yeah.
And so the major leagues do not want their superstar under the microscope if he doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And so if this was a case where Shohei was guilty by any fault, you'd have seen this drag out. You'd have seen this be a months-long process, as the MLB originally said it was potentially going to be. I think the fact that the information on Ippei is out there, it is circulating, and it's pretty damning, that it's a pretty good indication that Shohei's innocent on a lot of fronts. And so I think that's where it's going to end up. I don't think Shohei's going to have any problem with getting through this, but you talk about a scare. And I think that should just show any professional athlete, look, you need to be careful who you make friends with. And I think this is the biggest example of that today.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
quickly before we move on, just kind of looking at this from Ippei's perspective, I think we can all say it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that he knew what he was doing was morally incorrect. in terms of
Yeah.
like Shohei being your friend, and like you knew it probably wasn't the coolest thing to do to him. But do you think there's, and not that this really truly has any relevance in terms of the repercussions or anything like that, it doesn't. But just trying to look at it from his perspective, do you think for someone who's not from America, do you think maybe it might be coming a little bit of a shock with the magnitude of it because of like a lack of the American justice system?
I think it's more so the fact that maybe Ipe was under the impression that he wouldn't get caught, and
Yeah.
if he did get caught, it was not going to be as significant. Keep in mind, baseball is a very popular sport in Japan, but there's no country in the world that has more media scrutiny on professional sports than the United States.
Yeah.
And so I think the idea, and this is where I go back to the ESPN interview, you would never see that from somebody who knew the potential repercussions. So I think it
Yeah.
was a combination of a guy who was addicted to gambling and was willing to put anything behind that so he could get his bets in. And then I think it was the fact that he truly probably believed that he would either get away with it, or if he didn't get away with it, that the backlash would not be nearly what it was.
Yeah.
And so, maybe it's buyer's remorse for him now in the fact that he's likely going to be found guilty. But I just think it's a case of somebody who had an addiction and didn't expect to get this kind of scrutiny if he was caught, because you would never go to ESPN and agree to do an interview if you didn't think that you were going to be innocent at the end.
And another interesting thing to add on to kind of that, like underestimating that, is a lot of people, for those of you that are watching, you may not know this, you may know this, but Japan's criminal justice system is actually incredibly harsh, like very strict, lay down. So that could have also been, a slight, underestimation of, being caught. Obviously, I don't think he thought that he would get caught, because you wouldn't just go on ESPN and talk about it.
And a great transition, by the way, talking about criminal justice systems to topic number 2.
Oh, that's right.
Oh my God, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great
yeah.
unintentional segue.
And with the take I have on that I had a few minutes ago, I'm looking at you, Padres, Giants, and whoever is rivals with the Dodgers.
Well, as of this recording, the Dodgers has lost 4 of their last 5 games. They've given up an average of 4.5 runs plus per game. So, some effect to it for a team that was likely to win 100-plus games this season.
Do you think it's partially just, do you think they're distracted with this Ohtani situation?
Partially, but I think it's more so just the fact that their pitching is not what they thought it was. It was a weakness for the Dodgers rotation coming in, and but I can't imagine that it's completely shut out of everybody's minds, and it probably won't be until it gets officially resolved.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, if there's anything else, we'll keep you posted on that. But yes, so O.J. Simpson passed. The timing of that laugh.
Yeah, that transition, like you said,
I should have just. That was a good transition, and I ruined it.
Nah.
Damn it. But yes, O.J. Simpson, passed away this past week.
76 years old.
76. Which I know he had cancer, but
Yeah, I don't remember seeing. I don't know if the family disclosed what kind of cancer he had or anything like that.
yeah, it was just.
Just a battle with cancer.
Yeah,
just a battle
yeah,
with cancer was the wording. Yeah.
But when I saw the headline right away, my stepmom was like, "Oh, I remember the car chase."
Yep.
That was the first thing. That
And
was said.
probably at least some of his career in the NFL, I would think, right?
Yeah.
Talk about too how remarkable that event was, and obviously I don't remember any of it, but you look at the way that was covered and how it changed the sports media industry forever. They cut out of an NBA Finals game to cover the car chase of O.J. Simpson, and I think this is one of those situations. Not to jump in off the top here, but we can mourn his death while also being transparent about what he did or did not do. Of course, he was found innocent. You can dispute that until you're blue in the face. And I think it's been tough for the media industry, specifically people in our field, to cover this because so many people know the story and know what happened and have their own opinions about it. And it's been really interesting to see people cover this and to get their perspectives, because it's hard to not interject your opinion into a death like this. I think we could all agree, whether you think he was guilty or not, that polarizing is certainly the word that you can put next to him, whether you talk about the great running back that he was, or potentially the criminal that he was found not to be in court. So, that's pretty much all I have for this, because I think, for me, I'm not qualified, nor do I have enough background in that time period to be able to dive in deep about his backstory and his history, of course, just knowing what the courts came out with. But he will be somebody that changes American media forever and how we view sports as an industry, because he was one of the first that brought a true legal sentiment into covering sports. And we may never see a case like it again.
And not only that, but just in general, like, at that point in American media history, there wasn't that many people that were connected to a situation like that were talked about so widely on TV. Now, obviously, as media became more advanced, that changed as well. But, obviously you think of the big ones, you think of like Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, those things were talked, but there wasn't really that many. And then, again, like you said, it interjects into sports now. It's not just some random person. It's a person that's already well known in media and in sports. And obviously, again, we can say this completely separately from what he did or didn't do, was an absolute once-in-a-generation spectacle of an athlete. Absolutely incredible. And no one can discount that. But yeah, it's just now, obviously in his life, but now also in his death, he forever has impacted sports media. No doubt about
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But
we could do a Going for Gold just talking about all of that.
Probably could, yeah. But yeah, so moving on, the Coyotes are relocating to Utah.
Apparently. Relocating to
Oh, is it just an apparently right now?
So can I dive into this real quickly?
Yeah,
Before we don't even need to read the news on this, because this has been a
time.
incredibly interesting story to talk about. So, if you haven't heard the news, there is speculation. A lot of NHL insiders have come out with the fact that they are planning, the Coyotes that is, to move to Salt Lake City, Utah, in a move that would be about a $600 million investment with the team in Salt Lake City. It has been incredible to me, looking at the timeline of this, just how back and forth the reporting of this has been. And it's not often, when you hear a move broken, a trade broken in the NFL, by an Adam Schefter or an Ian Rappaport, or even in the NBA when Adrian Wojnarowski breaks a trade. It's known before by either the team or by people related to the team that this trade is about to go down. Yeah. And a lot of times as reporters, we have tips and stuff that we try to get on the record, but normally you have to hold these stories for a while because no one wants to speak on the record. Mm-hmm. But to hear just a few days ago, the Coyotes players, when asked about this story, say, we've heard nothing from our organization. We have not been told one way or another whether this is happening. We don't know the truth or validity to this. We don't know what to tell our families. And then for the Coyotes to come out just a few days ago, as of this recording, to say, hey, we're working through some stuff, but we can't comment at this time because the situation is fluid. I've never seen this before. No. And I understand if you're Arizona and your management, if you're going to move, you want to have everything nailed down. But the fact that they're not even willing to address these, quote, rumors or reports, and look, these are not under-the-radar reporters who are trying to speculate things. Yeah. These are the Darren Dragers of the world, the Frank Cervelli of Daily Faceoff that are reporting these, that are very credible guys who have lots of incredible sources and get things right. And so, you look at the way these last few years have went with Arizona and the issues with downtown and Glendale trying to get a new arena and have what have seemed to be 4 or 5 different renderings of different arenas in the past few years and haven't been able to make this work. It's crazy how quickly this is coming to a head, and to think that this could have all been avoided if they do move to Salt Lake City for years. with a lot of politics over who's going to pay for the parts of the arena. I think in a way they deserve it, do the Coyotes, but my goodness for the players and their families. What do you do? The season's over, and now you have to spend the offseason not knowing what building you're going to play in and not knowing what city you're going to be in. And that's something scary for the NHL. And I would not be shocked if in the next couple of days, maybe even when this podcast comes out, that Gary Bettman and the NHL make a strong push to owners and management to say, look, you have to put something out one way or another to say, hey, we're either taking steps to move to Salt Lake City or we've taken steps to solidify an arena plan in downtown Glendale or Phoenix, Arizona, because this is getting out of control and you feel for the players.
Yeah. I mean, this is this is actually shocking to me because, I mean, like you said, these things don't just happen. Like, there's always, obviously there's sources. Like, the information comes from somewhere. So the first reporters, the Schefters, the Rappaports, all those people of sports media, they have their sources. But I mean, this is prior to this breaking, this is borderline similar to an Art Modell situation with Cleveland. It's just 1 minute you don't know what's happening, and then all of a sudden, bam. This is all all this information's coming out, or all these people are talking about this possibility. It's obviously not actually relatively close to the exact same situation because Art Modell quite literally moved the Cleveland Browns to Baltimore in one night. But just in the kind of way it's 1 minute you're expecting one thing and then the next minute it's just something completely different than you're anticipating. Now, obviously, we've been hearing for a long time that Salt Lake City is a potential landing spot for multiple teams, actually. The Athletics have been named as a possible baseball team to move to Salt Lake City, so we've been waiting for the news on who's going to be moving to Salt Lake City, if not more than one. But, I mean, yeah, it's shocking that it's just kind of no one knows what's happening.
Keep in mind, at the beginning of the month, the Coyotes released renderings of a downtown arena and an arena district of staying in Arizona and not moving the team. So, you can't come out as management and say we've had this in the works for a long time because two things can't be true at once.
Exactly.
Either the renderings you released out to the public are a lie, or your plan was to stay in Arizona and Salt Lake City came in, swooped into the last second, made you a better offer, and that was that. So, going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, but right now things are trending towards an NHL team in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yeah, and then obviously if there's anything else, we'll keep you guys updated on that. Just crazy, just crazy. But real quick before we get to Rashee Rice, because it popped up in my head as we were talking about the Coyotes. You actually went to the Super Bowl this year.
I did.
How was that?
Tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
Tremendous, man. It's such a cool experience and something that I wish everyone gets a chance to witness. Really quickly, I could go in for hours about this, but the one thing that you realize when you're there is the game is an actual convention. It is Super Bowl week. It is not Super Bowl game day. And what I tell everybody when I talk about my experience is that by the time I got to Friday, we were in Vegas from Sunday night before the game to Monday morning after the game. So 8 days. By the time you get to Friday, you don't even realize that there's a game. So many events, so many entertainment options. And having it be in Vegas, too, was a spectacle. The game, of course, was great, but for me, it was the week and getting a chance to talk to some of the great NFL players and whatnot. If you're a fan and you don't have the money to go to the game, I would recommend you try to go during Super Bowl week. It's just worth it, the NFL fan experience. Nothing quite like it. So a ton of fun. We could spend hours on this, man, but pretty awesome to get to experience. And one of the guys that I talked to one-on-one during the Super Bowl week we're going to talk about now.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think I saw it on your Twitter. Did you get to interview Bruce Buffer?
Yes. Yes. He is such a sweet guy, really, really nice, down to earth. It was right at the end of opening night. He actually did the introductions for the teams on opening night. And to get to speak with him, albeit for 90 seconds to 2 minutes, very giving, very willing to talk, and so much energy for him. I mean, he's all over the map doing everything, and it was a really neat experience, and just all week getting to talk to some of the great people. Something I'll never forget, that's for sure.
It's crazy. Where's the Super Bowl next year?
New Orleans.
Ooh.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Transition. Again, I just don't take his transitions. Like, they're perfect transitions. But yeah, Rashee Rice did turn himself in to the authorities. So, Alex, you're the prompter man. Go ahead.
Yeah, so 2 victims from the crash are currently suing Rashee Rice and Teddy Knox, current SMU wide receiver, I believe a sophomore from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Don't know why it's this quarter.
Or cornerback, sorry, not receiver, Teddy Knox.
Oh, I did have that right.
Being sued by Edward Petrovsky and Irina Granova, whose attorneys filed a lawsuit in Dallas County Court on Thursday per Fox 4. Petrovsky and Granova were in a 2022 Lexus 350 SUV. It's a nice vehicle. When they were struck by Rice and Knox, I know this off the top of my head, they were both vehicles that were under lease of Rashee Rice at the time. That the Lamborghini Urus, believed to be driven by Rice, was traveling at 119 miles per hour just seconds before the March 30th collision. The fact that no one has died is insane. Knox, who allegedly was driving a Chevrolet Corvette, was traveling 116 miles per hour, but slowed down to 91, because that makes a difference, just 1 second before the accident. The lawsuit in Dallas County Court stated that Petrovsky and Granova were severely injured by the tremendous force of the high-speed impact. I know they're seeking actual damages, like property damages of an additional like $71,000 as well. But yeah, apparently there was some internal bleeding, some disfigurement, some stitches required, head trauma,
He has a lot of people around him, Rashee Rice, regardless of family, regardless of friends, that will be able to guide him through this. And I think Andy Reid has been a great mentor for so many players, both on and off the field. We know Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce's style of leadership. And I think this is an instance of, and again, I'm not going to speculate. I wasn't part of the accident. I don't know Rashee. I've talked to him once or twice. He seems like a genuinely good guy. And he was a rookie who made a mistake. And thank goodness no one was killed. I think that is, for him, a godsend. But, you know, just from what I've read and from what I'm hearing, it seems as if he understands an honest mistake. A mistake, don't get me wrong, it was a clear mistake. But, you know, sometimes I think when you're an NFL rookie, you get caught up in the drama and the lights and the glamour and the ritz of everything, and you're coming off a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, I was going to say, that does help.
And so you think you're invincible maybe sometimes. And I'm not saying that's how Rashee felt, but I think when you just look at the situation, he turned himself in. He's going to probably have to face some harsh penalties, but I think the biggest penalty he's going to have to face is in his head, knowing that he got his one mulligan, if you will. And I'm not saying this is a mulligan, because it's not. What he did is horrendous, and it's again a good thing that nobody is gone because of this. But a good learning opportunity for him. I don't think this is going to ruin his career at all.
no, I don't think so either. If someone had been killed, I think it would be different.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind too, it's the same situation as if you or I or anybody at this table was driving 116 down a highway. It's a really dumb, careless, reckless thing to do. And so I think it's something that he will need to learn from. He will need to be extremely remorseful, which it appears that he is. But I think also, too, that his team can guide him through this, not in terms of trying to ignore it, but in terms of the off-the-field leadership that guys like Mahomes and Kelce and Reid can provide to him.
Oh, they can have, yeah, they'll absolutely help.
So do I think this is going to end his career? No, it's not. No. But I do think that it's an important learning lesson forget athletes, for anybody. You're never bigger than the moment. And I think this was a case of Rashee Rice, maybe for one night, thinking that he was. And thank goodness for him that no one is gone because of it. And so I think a good chance for him to learn. And I don't think he'll be off the team, though. I don't see that being a case.
No, I don't think so either. And I think it'll probably be especially easy for him having Kelce on the team, someone who we all know very well was heavily scrutinized against for his off-the-field behavior early in his career and in college and stuff like that. So I agree. I think this is just a moment where he has to, and again, he seems like he's holding himself accountable. Obviously, he turned himself in. He wasn't getting dragged in by authorities, getting chased down or anything like that. He turned himself in. So I think that hopefully this is a wake-up call because you're right. I mean, this is the biggest risk with professional sports and the way they work of drafting these young men so young is that we talk about how, so many contracts are small in the NFL. You're still getting paid 8 figures a year, even as a rookie. So, just coming into that and being young and just being excited, especially with the impact that he played in the playoffs for the Chiefs this past year and everything like that. So it's, it's a lot, and it's got to be a wake-up call for him. So I'm sure that he'll learn.
Yeah, one of the receivers that didn't drop any passes from Mahomes. Cough, cough, Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, one guy with hands.
Speaking of the Chiefs, I want to get your opinion on this real quick. So he's had a take he's had for a while, and he knows what I'm about to say, and that is that he believes that the Kansas City Chiefs will three-peat.
I do.
Do you believe they could three-peat?
I mean, who would you pick to beat them at this current moment in time?
Nobody.
Is there a team out there? Let's set the record straight. There are plenty of teams roster-wise that are deeper and more talented than Kansas City. Mm-hmm. But as we saw last year, and when I was in Buffalo watching that Bills-Chiefs game, experience is the biggest asset you can have in the playoffs. And they have shown for now two back-to-back championships, but of course at the time that Mahomes has been a quarterback, that regardless of how they play in the regular season, they take it up to a different level in the playoffs. And whether it is Josh Allen and company that come back to the divisional round next year, whether Joe Burrow gets healthy, T. Higgins stays on the team, Jamar Chase gets his big payday with Cincinnati, maybe Pittsburgh makes a run in the North, maybe Cleveland is back to where they were with Deshaun Watson. Baltimore now with MVP Lamar Jackson and company in the way that they've been playing. You look at Houston now with Stephon Diggs. I mean, you could go on and on. The AFC is stacked, but could you name a team that realistically you look at and say they've got the mental fortitude and the experience to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs? They just don't. I thought for sure that Buffalo would beat Kansas City by double digits in the divisional round. They were more talented. They were, you could say, more rested. They were rolling. They had won 6 straight games coming into it, and they were at home. First playoff game against Kansas City in front of fans at home. And we saw Mahomes and the defense take it to another level. We saw Isaiah Pacheco go off. I mean, they just find different ways to win games. So I'd agree. I mean, it's hard to repeat. It's even tougher to three-peat. No one's ever done it before. But I'll tell you what, it is going to be really hard to see any other team in the league come playoff time beat this team. Regular season, Kansas City may only win 9 games. But come playoff time, even if they have to go on the road for 3 games, who do you have? I mean,
and that's what I mean. They have checked, because every single year, I mean, first of all, the Kansas City Chiefs have made the AFC Championship every single season that Patrick Mahomes has been the starter for this team. Obviously, in 2017, they were a good team. They made it to, I think they lost in the wild card of the Titans that year, actually. But every single year, there's always the next question, and they answer it. Every single time. The first time, he loses to Brady, and it's, well, how do they make it back? They made it back. They actually made it to the Super Bowl. They won it. And then it's, how does he do when he doesn't have a good defense? Blew the league up without a defense. And then what happens whenever they have to go on the road for a playoff game? They've hosted the AFC Championship every year. He goes on the road and wins the Super Bowl that year. Every single time. And that's what some people don't get still, is that no matter what question you have about the Chiefs, they will answer it, especially come playoff time. That's the thing. I've been saying it forever now. Patrick Mahomes is inevitable. He is very quickly, quite frankly, skyrocketing up to that level of Tom Brady, where when you score and go up and you look up at that clock and there's a minute on that clock, you knew you lost. Yeah. And he has just he's reaching that level of just, I don't care if Kelsey's hurt. I don't care if I've got receivers dropping balls that are 15 yards of separation. I don't care. I'm going to will my football team to win this game. And that's what they do.
Really quickly, before, because I know we got to move on. I made the argument that Buffalo should have gone for it on 4th and 9 instead of kicked the 40-something yard field goal that Tyler Bass ended up missing. There was a minute and 40 seconds on the clock, and everyone talked about how at the end of the game, okay, if Bass would have made it, it would have been different.
No, it wouldn't have been.
Kansas City would have won the game. I mean, a minute and a half left to go. You're in a tie game. All you need is a field goal. I thought Buffalo should have gone for it on 4th and 9. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but again, that's just how good they are. It doesn't matter how much time is on the clock. As we've seen, 13 seconds, probably less at this point, is enough for Kansas City to come back and win a game. I think you're right. I would put them as the favorite to win the Super Bowl until they get knocked off.
Yeah, and I'll stand by this. And I agree with Alex too. Everything he said. Patrick Mahomes, and obviously everybody knows this and everything, but I'm just repeating it since we're on the topic. He's the best quarterback in the NFL, and just like Alex said, he is skyrocketing past Brady. I mean, what did we say on the Critical Eye that he was gonna?
He was going to at least tie the rings.
I think he said tie.
If not eclipse. I said tie, maybe one more.
It was like tie and then like.
I know you said
more.
For sure that he would have more rings than Brady. I said he would tie him, but maybe get one more.
Something like that.
Yeah, we'll see how he does in his 30s. But if you talk about the two quarterbacks and compare them in their 20s, Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, is the better quarterback, and I don't think it's particularly close.
I don't think so. I mean, just purely statistically, it's not even.
Yeah. But all right. This is where Alex shuts up.
Yeah, this is where I don't talk as much.
Pirates. We'll start off with this. Andrew McCutchen finally got his 300th home run in Philadelphia.
How appropriate. A Pittsburgh athlete reaches a major career milestone against Philadelphia.
Yeah. I really like that one. I'll start off here. I have my opinions on this. I love Andrew McCutchen. Do you think he is a Hall of Famer? I'll start it off by, I love McCutchen. He brought back the love of baseball for the city of Pittsburgh. But still, how many of these does he have?
Yeah.
I would go a different route. I don't think it's because of world championships. I think his defense has been subpar his entire career.
Okay.
I mean, you make the argument that the reason that he was ousted from Pittsburgh is because they moved him from center field to right field. Remember in the famous game when Starling Marte was out one of these games, he makes a catch in center, and he says, "This is my spot." And I think there was a lot of frustration with him knowing that his defense was deteriorating. I'll put it to you this way. The guy is going to be an icon in Pittsburgh forever.
Oh, absolutely.
The problem herein lies, if you put him on any other team in the league that had a consistent playoff resume, he'd be a 7, maybe an 8 or 9 hitter. He's a Michael A. Taylor on New York Yankees, right?
Okay.
And so I think when you put it in that perspective, I think he'll be just short. The homer in me wants to say he's there. But if he wins a world championship, that could be different. But I mean, the guy's an unbelievable player. He's just so hard to read.
Yeah.
Because he's not a power hitter. He's not going to dazzle you with his power. I just think in recent years, his fielding percentage, as much as it has dropped, and of course now being the DH, is going to be what gets it, what ends up putting him out. But a remarkable career nonetheless, and it's something that I think Pittsburgh fans should be proud of.
Yeah, but. I don't know. I've said it. I said it on Going for Gold a lot with a lot of the players we mentioned with the tier list. With me, I don't know. With me, it's just championships. It's just something that because I was like
either
listening.
That or like major individual accomplishments. Because like there are multiple avenues from which you could be a Hall of Famer in any sport. Like me personally, some people may consider this a very unpopular opinion. I think it's actually quite logical. Just looking at individual accolades, win percentage, and statistics, even only this far into his career, I would say Lamar Jackson could be a Hall of Famer right now. He wouldn't be first ballot. He wouldn't be like that #1 guy on your list, but he would eventually make it in because he's won a unanimous MVP. He won a second MVP. His playoff win percentage is starting to improve. His regular season win percentage is unbelievable. And his individual statistics, he's clearly a major impact. Shout out to Eric Mangini. I'll use one of his terms. He's a force multiplier. And again, I know that's an unpopular opinion, but 2 MVPs in your first 6 years in the league, you win a lot of games. He could make a push for the argument even right now. There's multiple avenues from which you could do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Ever since, because I believe it was a podcast with Shaquille O'Neal, and he always talked about championships. And he'd always argue it's about championships. And do I think it's all about that? No. But for me, I don't know.
Certainly a big one.
With me, I mean, for me, I don't know. I feel like, in my opinion, it's just the biggest one. And considering what I am trying to do in the future, now that I can actually say it with AEW, it's just, I don't know. I feel like if you have a ring, in certain ways, it could also help you be solidified. If my case makes sense, I feel like more people will look at you in a way like, okay, he got some rings. That certainly helps, but I don't know. I feel like with championships, for me at least, I don't know. I feel like it definitely plays a big factor in Hall of Fame careers.
Absolutely.
But I definitely do see the case of, like, it's not everything as well. But yeah. So you guys ain't got anything else about Andrew McCutchen? I know I have bullet points about the New York Mets game from yesterday. But
yeah, let's dive into that.
Yeah.
Epitome of how the last week and a half has gone for the team, right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be real honest. It's been a busy few days. I have not been able to watch any of the games, which I'm upset because, of course, McCutchen hit his 300th, and I wanted to see that, but I missed it. But yes, so I saw the clip. Aroldis Chapman was ejected yesterday for arguing balls and strikes. So I'll give my opinion about the Chapman thing in a minute. So I'm a baseball player, right? I don't care for arguing balls and strikes. Obviously, you have an opinion about it, and of course you're gonna be mad if you strike out and if it's a ball, but they call it a strike. I don't care for arguing for the umps because you can't overturn it. So the way I look at it is, what's the point? And you can argue, yeah, they won't make the call again. They won't make the call again, but Angel Hernandez still has a job. So that's my point.
So I'm curious, what's your Chapman argument?
Well, with the Chapman thing,
opinion, yeah.
I from what I saw, I think he was in the right, because there was, I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong, and like I said, I didn't see the game, so I could be dead wrong on this. There was just a few calls where I saw clearly it was a strike, but yet it was called a ball. And you see this all the time with, like, Angel Hernandez and other umpires in the league. Once again, there's no point in Chapman arguing because it can't be overturned. But yeah, so I don't know. There's obviously the me, and I'm rooting for my team, and I think Chapman was in the right. But then there's also the reality in me of, okay, there's no point in arguing it because you can't overturn it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you to an extent. Mm-hmm. Certainly, if it's getting to the point where it's really, really bad,
yeah,
then that's worth arguing. But I'm actually going to pivot and talk about the Pirates bullpen as a whole.
Okay.
Because I think this is where the Aroldis Chapman frustration boils over. This is becoming a really big problem really quickly for the Pirates. As good as Chapman was throwing early in this season and the ability to hit 101, this Pirates bullpen has struggled again.
Yeah.
Chapman gives up the lead in the 7th inning when Pittsburgh was up 3-0. Colin Holderman's still not back to full health. David Bednar has blown 3 saves, and it may be 4 or 5 by the time this episode airs. So the same problems that are starting to haunt the Pirates now are similar to what haunted them last year. Starting pitching became an issue down the stretch. We're seeing Pittsburgh rectify that a little bit now. I don't know. Again, you talked about you haven't watched a ton of games, Mike, but if you see in the box score, these starting pitchers are not throwing more than 80 to 85 pitches a game, and that was a lot of the concern with Mitch Keller last season as he got burned out in September. The ERA after the All-Star break dipped tremendously in the wrong direction. So they're trying to rectify that, but you have to rely on your bullpen to be able to make that work. And what we have seen is that if you force them to throw too many innings in a week, they're going to let you down. I mean, let's keep in mind, David Bednar, as good as he has been, he is not a pitcher that can go 5 or 6 days a week. Same with Aroldis Chapman. He's old. He needs some rest. He's a flamethrower. He's not going to give you 100 or 101 if you make him throw 3 days in a row. So I think what Pittsburgh needs to do is they need to find a balance. They also need to find a middle reliever guy. We have not seen anybody, short of maybe Ortiz from time to time, be able to come in there and throw successful innings in the middle of the game. And so even though the offense hasn't been completely up to par yet, it's a team right now, as of this recording, that's sitting at 11-6. And the offensive statistics would show you, compared to last season at this time, that they've got a shot to be better. But the bullpen's going to have to be better. If you can't keep leads in this league, in this day and age, you are going to get smoked. And it's concerning for Pittsburgh, but the only good news about that is you're sitting with a winning record right now. And that's something that I think you can rectify and quickly, but you have to find the people to be able to do it.
Yeah. And once again, from at least what I've seen on Twitter, it seems like once again Brian Reynolds is still consistently the best hitter on the team from what I've seen.
Yeah, and I mean, and you look at the lineup, and that's shown, right? Reynolds has been about the only guy who stayed in his spot, either in the 2 or the 3. Something that's concerning me is O'Neal Cruz's strikeout rate this season.
Yeah.
He is really, in my opinion, regressed when it comes to plate vision. I think that could become a big problem for the Pirates because that was supposed to be your leadoff hitter. And we have not seen him have that success in that spot. He's been dropped to the 6 hole a few times this season. And if you don't have that guy at the top of the lineup that can get on base, you're relying on Reynolds to shoot over the moon for you. And I don't know if you can do that for the whole season.
Yeah, and I think I did have an O'Neal Cruz. You can keep it on the Henry Davis thing. We'll go to him in a second. But the question I had was, do you believe, and in my opinion, I think it's time to find a different leadoff hitter. But do you think O'Neal Cruz should not be the leadoff hitter this?
No, I think he still should be. I mean,
really? Okay.
I mean, even with the strikeout ratio, there's not another guy in the lineup who you can say, all right, I think he's worth putting up there. I mean, Michael A. Taylor, you could make the argument just because of his on-base percentage. Which has not been tremendous this year, but in years past it has. That's why the Braves had him in the 9 hole to be able to flip the lineup card over for Acuna in previous years. But you look at the lineup, I mean, do you put Reynolds in the leadoff spot? Do you put Brian Hayes? Do you move him up to 1? Could Jack Sawinski potentially be a guy, even though he's a power hitter, that you say, all right, we need you to get on base?
Yeah.
Do you experiment with Kutch? I don't think it's a good idea, but maybe. It's possible. So you got options, but I think the number one guy that I would have at the top of my list is a guy that I didn't mention. I'd put Connor Joe up there.
Okay.
But I still think O'Neal Cruz, unless he regresses so badly to the point where you're debating taking him out of the lineup for a few days to get him right in the head, he has to be your leadoff hitter. He's your best option there, and I think he will break out of this slump. But right now, it's not looking great.
See, the reason why I say right now, possibly yes, is like you said, experiment. See if there's another option. Do you make it permanently? Unless it, say you put Brian Hayes batting first and it just works tremendously.
Sure.
Then yeah. But I think, like you said, if it continues, I think it'd be time to maybe experiment a different leadoff hitter.
Yeah.
I'll jump the gun and say yes for now. Then again, I need to watch more games to solidify my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see. I do think an experiment would be nice by now. Would I hate keeping him in there? No. Like you said, as of right now, O'Neal Cruz is your best option until you can figure out who could bat first. But we'll see. We'll see. But yes, moving on. Henry Davis. Yikes. So I have a question on the prompter, and we'll see what you say. Would it be the worst idea to send him down to AAA to get him at bats to build his confidence back up?
No.
No.
That's just my opinion. And I say that because you're kind of stuck in your own situation that you've manifested for yourself. Why Henry Davis was not getting reps at catcher last season bewilders me.
Right.
Why he wasn't in the lineup more bewilders me. This is a guy who, to me, is MLB ready, but they have not given him the opportunity to show so. And if you demote him back down to the minors, what you are essentially saying is that you need to start over.
Yeah.
You know, and essentially also what you're saying as an organization is that we messed up drafting you as a catcher. There was a real discussion. I have talks from time to time with Jason Mackey of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. There were a lot of discussions that Henry Davis wasn't going to catch at all in the offseason. I know that Ben Sherrington had came out in the offseason and said, hey, he's our catcher. We want to be able to develop him. But if not for Endy Rodriguez going down, I mean,
Yeah, that hurt.
He may not be in the lineup at all, much less for a DH, unless you stick him in right field. So I think it's one of those situations where you are seeing the repercussions from not putting him in the right spot to have success last season. And like O'Neal Cruz, I think he'll break out of this. But you can't go back on a guy that you drafted number 1 overall just because he's struggling for a couple of weeks because of, in my opinion, of a situation of your own doing and having him play right field and batting in the bottom 3. Maybe he's not all that he was cracked up to be, but he's still your best option at catcher. And so I don't see a scenario, especially for a team that has talked about wanting to contend for the playoffs, of them sending him down back to AAA for what? So he can get 30 to 40 at bats. I just don't see the logic to it. Will they? I don't know. But you don't traditionally take a number 1 pick unless he is really, really having an awful start to the season and put him back down to AAA, especially after the way they mishandled the situation. I don't see him going back down. Maybe he does, but to me it would be a mistake.
Okay, interesting. I'm like 50-50 on it. I feel like there's been instances where people got sent down, called back up, and some things are fixed. But at the same time, Endy Rodriguez getting hurt, that hurt. That really hurt. Plus, I don't know. Plus, I really like Endy Rodriguez too. Like the energy he brings when he's catching and the energy he brings in the dugout. So my answer for this is 50-50. I can agree that maybe it's not the worst idea, but at the same time, what other option do you have? There's another guy that's smashing the ball as of right now that we'll get to in a second, but that's not a long-term catcher. It's really not. So, and then Yasmani Grandal is injured, and he's not a long-term answer either. So, yeah, I'm 50-50. I'm 50-50 on it. But now the question of, do I think it's going to happen? No, it's not. But we'll see. And now the next question is more so of a joke because of the play I saw in the outfield with Connor Joe last night. The joke question I have is, can anyone make a play for Martin Perez? So, can I see the ball, please? I'm going to demonstrate what happened. So Connor Joe was making a play in the outfield for anybody that wasn't watching the game, like me, but I saw the clip. Catches it, throws it, and then basically just spikes it on the ground. Ball slipped, and yeah, so that's not really a topic point. I just wanted to mention that. I think I saw Cody Duncan on Twitter said that's as bad as the Cubs play with Will Craig. What? No, that might not. I'm gonna get that right because that is a big thing.
Talking the Gregory Polanco play on a...
The Gregory Polanco play, that's what it was. I was like, was it the Polanco play or the Will Craig? No. It was for sure not the Will Craig play because, yeah, I'm not talking about that. Which I remember that too. I was at school and I was fuming. But yeah. So that's that. But yeah, Joey Bart. My goodness, just crazy. Smashing the ball. How many home runs does? I know it's like probably 2, 3.
I don't know off the top of my head. I have not. I didn't get a chance to look at his stats coming into the day today. But hitting the ball well when he is in the lineup, which is a good consistency factor for Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when Yasmani Grandal comes back, if he even comes back. we'll see, because Joey Bart is clearly stating his case to stay in Pittsburgh. But to make this quick, the Pirates did lose 6-3 yesterday. Harrison Bader drove in the go-ahead run in the 8th. So I can't remember from the top of my head. Do you know who's on the hill tonight for Pittsburgh?
I don't.
I think it goes Keller, Perez. It might be Jared Jones.
Yeah, I apologize. I have not been specific with the rotation. I've looked at the Pirates more on an evergreen level and just kind of how the consistency factor has gone this season. But regardless of who's starting any night, they're going to have to bring their best because this is a situation where the bullpen is struggling and you need your starters to go 6, 7, maybe 8 innings at times.
Now, before we move on to the Penguins real quick, because I know we quite a little, maybe a little short on time, but do you think Oscar Marin is a problem? Because it seems like starting pitching, for me at least, from what I've seen in my opinion, starting pitching is always the biggest question mark for the Pirates. And not just starting pitching, sorry, just pitching in general.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think it's a question that I would kick the can down the road. I think because we are seeing a lot of the starting pitchers get pulled after the 80 to 85 pitch mark. Yeah. And you're trying your best, I think, as an organization to rest them. I think that question's better saved for August and September when you get down to the nitty-gritty, when you maybe need to win games to make the playoffs. How healthy, how mature, how developed are these starting pitchers? That, to me, is the big question. A lot of the question marks for this season will be found out in August when rubber meets the road and you need to start winning games with your starters. Because, again, you can't burn your bullpen as quickly as they have been early in the season. Right.
Now, another question that popped up in my head real quick, because obviously we don't know the next time we'll be able to do this. With looking at the team right now and whatever moves they could possibly make in the future, of course, Paul Skeens is most likely on his way up in the next maybe few months, maybe July or so. Do you think the Pirates could be a playoff team this year?
I think they could be. If they figure out the issue on the back end of the bullpen, you just have to add some depth, and I think we haven't seen that in previous seasons from the Pirates. The lineup they have can get it done offensively. O'Neal Cruz is going to figure this out. I don't think it's going to be a situation where he struggles all season. Right. Henry Davis, to me, will be good enough that I think he'll be serviceable when necessary. And you look at the rest of the lineup, I mean, the offense is going to be okay. You'll have times where you go into a slump, but you look at the NL Central and how mediocre it has been in the first 15, 20 games of the season. They could make a push. There's no question about it. You just have to figure out the pitching. And then my big question is going to be, come August, how the starting pitching holds up. They were tremendous at the beginning of the season last year. They've been decent at the beginning of the season this year. How can you hold up when you get to game 120 and you have to probably win 25 of your last 40 games to make the playoffs?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I've said it ad nauseum, and Alex can agree. I think 2024 and 2025 needs to be the years the Pirates are contending, because then it's going to be questioning the rebuild strategy from Ben Cherington.
Right. Assuming he's still there.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you look at the Rangers, the Diamondbacks, and how long it took them to rebuild. How long have we been on this rebuild with Ben Cherington?
You can make the argument, before Cherington even began, you can make the argument since the 2015 wildcard game.
Yeah, that is very true. So it'll just be questions if the Pirates can't make the playoffs this year, I feel like, and if once again they can't do it for some reason next year, that it's really just you gotta think maybe Ben Cherington would be in the hot seat in that case, but I don't know. So yeah, we'll see how the Pirates do. And Alex, now you can come back now.
Yeah.
Penguins. This man came into the room.
No.
So open the door. Just, would you like to repeat what you said?
Well, you better make it a good one. This is my last segment before I gotta go, so you better make it a good one.
So this is the thing with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Obviously, it's Pittsburgh sports, so we're all going to be puckered up until the last game of the season, seeing if they're going to make the playoffs or not. But this is what I'll tell you about the Pittsburgh Penguins. Some exclamation point wins. Some exclamation point losses as well, but less of those, which is a good thing. Huge one on April 6th. I think this is back further than the last thing we talked about with the Penguins, but a 5-4 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning at home is massive. Lost in OT to the Maple Leafs at Toronto 3-2. Beat the Red Wings in OT 6-5 at home. That's one you have to win. Lost to the Bruins 6-4. Just goaltending's been rough lately. But the Bruins are obviously really good. Gonna suck in the playoffs, but that's fine. And then they beat the Predators 4-2 last night. This is the thing about the Penguins. They're in 5th place in the Metro right now. They are currently 1 win and 1 point behind the Capitals for 4th place in the Metro. They play the Islanders tomorrow night, who are 3rd in the Metro. If this team can just make it to 45 wins this year in a Metro that outside of Carolina and the Rangers is not very good. I mean, looking at it, Islanders, Capitals, and Penguins all have 38 or 39 wins, and then both the Rangers and the Hurricanes have 50 plus. They're the really good teams, obviously, in the Metro. If you can beat the Islanders tomorrow night and just make it to 45, 48 wins somehow, if you can just get hot to end the season, you obviously never know what's going to happen. I did come in here quite loud and obnoxious saying that we were going to win the Cup. Obviously got to give the home team some love.
Yeah, I was like, it's a good thing to yell out when you haven't seen when Isaac hasn't seen us in months.
Yeah.
Well,
about Victory Tuesday.
It's good optimism. I will play devil's advocate. Here are the scenarios as of this recording, by the way, for Penguins fans who would like to make the playoffs. So Tuesday night, which is tonight, the night of this recording, we have 2 games. If you're a Penguins fan, you need wins for certain teams. Philadelphia tonight must beat Washington, does not have to be in regulation, but the Capitals cannot win. As for the Red Wings, who came back from a 4-1 deficit on Montreal on Monday night to get an overtime win and get to that scenario on Tuesday. Montreal must beat Detroit. That game could also be in overtime or shootout, but the Penguins need 2 losses from the Capitals and the Red Wings to make it in. Then they, of course, would need a victory against the Islanders on Wednesday. New York has not officially clinched 3rd in the division, but they have clinched a playoff spot. Pittsburgh cannot make 3rd in the Metro no matter what they do. They're too far out. I will say this with the team, Alex, to your point. John Leineck and I at Erie News Now, we're both Penguins fans. We talk about this incessantly, and I cannot for the life of me get over my frustration of how the team has played over the last 12 games. Not because they have played badly, but because they have played well. They're 8-1-3. They have not lost a regulation game. They had not lost a regulation game until they lost to Boston on Saturday night in 3 weeks. And so my frustration in this situation with the team is, you know, the question mark we had all season long was age going to play a factor in the team? And I think we can all agree that it has. But when you look at the way that they have performed, specifically with, of course, Sid being on the tear that he is in, Evgeny Malkin has played a career 2 weeks with this team. Lars Eller adding depth on the back end. Erik Karlsson starting to get back, at least offensively, with the player that he's been in the last few years, including that Norris Trophy last season. This team still has it. They really do. Like, I really believe, even at the age that they are capable of winning hockey games. But you just look at the inconsistency of this team and the fact that they cannot, for the life of them, finish games. That's been their Achilles heel all season long, as they don't put 60 minutes together, and it's killed them. You look at all the games that they've lost in overtime, the leads they've blown, i.e. to the Colorado Avalanche a few weeks back when they were up 4-0 in the second period. You win that game, you're sitting in a spot where all you need is a point to be able to get into the playoffs. So this will be a really frustrating offseason for Mike Sullivan and the Penguins if they don't make the playoffs. Even if they do, I think, make it in, they're not getting past a round. But in the fact that you ended the season as you did, knowing that you still have the capability of winning hockey games, even as old as you are, but just not consistently enough. And I think it'll be an interesting offseason for Kyle Dubas. He's going to have to get younger. You're going to have guys like Ricard Raquel, Riley Smith, who will likely be traded. Tristan Jarry, I think, could be on the trading block as well to be gone for Pittsburgh, considering Alex Nedeljkovic is on a 1-year deal. He'll be cheap again next season. Joel Blomqvist will come up from Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and that, to me, is your number one goaltender. And now, when you look at the core 3, Crosby, Malkin, and Letang, who aren't going anywhere, What do you do with the rest of the team?
Right.
Do you try to bring Jake Gensel back in free agency and pay him the $8.5 to $9 million that he probably deserves?
Right.
A lot of questions, but frustrating as a fan and as a person covering the team in the fact that you're good enough to get close to the postseason. If you had just had some success middle of the year when you struggled, I think it'd have been a different story.
I would say my biggest source of optimism for the Penguins, not just for the rest of this year, but going forward into the 2024, 2025 season, obviously, is that Kyle Dubas has made it very apparent in his short time so far with the Penguins that he will make deals. And he'll go out and he'll do some things. He'll send out some picks. He'll send out some players. Obviously, he got Carlson. He traded away Gensel. You know, he's willing to do something that we're seeing Omar Khan doing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, change in leadership in the front office. We're starting to see some guys that are a little more aggressive, a little more willing to do things that are necessary to actually win. And quite frankly, anytime there's a Wilkes-Barre Penguin that is a goalie, I feel a lot better.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, go ahead. I think it's going to be an interesting offseason.
Oh no. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And Alex knows how harsh I can be on Tristan Jarry.
Yeah.
I can be maybe a little too harsh about Jarry. I mean, obviously, say what you want of how he's done this season. Definitely not the greatest.
Well, it's a consistency factor. I
yeah.
mean, his save percentage is below 900 since the All-Star break, and we saw that last season too. He had a great start to the season, got to the All-Star game, and something turned with him in that he couldn't continue the success. So we talk about sustainability with the Pirates and the continuity of being able to play a whole season. That's the problem with Tristan Jarry. John and I were actually debating this on my show on Monday night. It was one of my overreaction topics. I said the Penguins should trade him, and John's argument was I don't know what the market's going to be for him. We see teams in the league overpay all the time. There's a team in the Metropolitan Division that I think would kill for a goaltender and probably trade a second-round pick from him. New Jersey. You look at a team like Edmonton. If they don't win the Cup this year, do you really trust Stuart Skinner and the lot in between the pipes for the Oilers? I mean, there are teams that will overpay for Tristan Jarry. And for Kyle Dubas, if you trust it, you have Joel Blomqvist coming up. It's a significant chunk of change. It's over $5 million off the books in salary. And if you want to get younger and you want to try to make waves through the draft, you have to shed salary because you're going to have to supplement with some veterans. But you're also going to have to look to the future. And if this is a 3 or 4 year process, you're going to want cap space a few years down the road when this team, theoretically younger, is going to all be due a big payday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Before we do a quick transition and then end this, I think the two, and Alex would probably agree with this. I think the two just athletes that I am the most harsh on is Tristan Jarry and Jack Sawinski.
Yeah.
I am very hard. We didn't have time to debate this, but I don't know. For me, little patience running out with Sawinski. I still feel like there's time left for him to prove me wrong, but I feel like I have also been a little harsh on Jack Sawinski. So we'll see where there. So real quick, here's a transition. We could do the rundown pre-recorded, so then we can run some, since it'll be quick. Here's a transition of a new thing. We'll call it like Alex Rundown or something like that. Here are the headlines for the sports world right now.
This is a new segment. Don't know how often we'll do it, but this is where I stand up at the podium like a goober and I read you recent headlines in sports media. Probably the biggest one, actually, I would say the biggest one. Caitlin Clark goes #1 overall in the WNBA draft with the Indiana Fever. No one's remotely surprised by this, but it's official. It happened. Cameron Brink to the LA Sparks and Camila Cardoso to the Chicago Sky. Shout out to Caitlin Clark for showing up in Prada last night. It was really dope. Jacoby Matthews enters the transfer portal, the latest to leave Texas A&M. Is that college basketball, I assume, or is that football? Okay. Jacoby Matthews, look him up. Buffalo Sabres fire Don Granato as record playoff drought continues. Sorry, I can't read. Buffalo Sabres, yeah. Yikes. Sorry, people from around this area that are probably Buffalo fans, but you guys suck. Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid to headline Team USA in the 2024 Olympics in Paris. I mean, that's just unfair. I'm going to be totally honest. Brooklyn Nets are prepared to hire Jordy Fernandez as head coach. I am not familiar. But hey, shout out to the Nets. Football. Jacoby Matthews is football. All right. But yeah, shout out to the Nets. Hopefully, new coach, they get better, obviously. This is a big one. NFL, this is stuff that I really know well. Cortland Sutton eyes new deal. He has skipped the start of voluntary workouts, so he has not been at any Broncos off-season training so far, which is not really shocking. He's in search of a new contract, so we'll see how that goes down. And finally, locally, this is the biggest one. Big headline, major thing that was announced, I believe, middle or late last week, that Mercyhurst University is moving up in all of their collegiate sports from Division II to Division I AA, a.k.a. the FCS level, a.k.a. The worst Division I level. Shout out to all my FCS athletes out there. You guys are awesome. But yeah, big switch up. Takes a lot to be able to move up, and we will see how their sports do. I mean, we'll never talk about them because, like, Mercy worst. We hate Mercyhurst here. But, like, I don't know. It's going to be a tough couple of years, but eventually with recruiting and stuff like that, I'm sure they'll be able to build it up. So that concludes this episode of Rundown. I usually do a paper toss, but for this, I'm just going to do that.
Okay. Isaac, thanks for coming on to Tailgate Talks once again. Obviously, we'll have to do this again some other time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a ton of fun, and we'll see how quickly news materializes next time I'm here. I think it's been a crazy couple of months in terms of the cycle.
Yeah.
With everything going on locally and professionally. But hey, that's the sports world. It never stops.
When was it? I think it was before March Madness. When all this NFL free agency was happening, I think I texted you. I was like, "Yeah, this is the moment where I can say this is the welcome to the media world for Alex and I."
Yeah, where you sit down and you look at your phone and keep spamming X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, and that news always populates quickly.
Yeah. It was a hectic time because we wanted to keep March Madness, and then of course Kenny gets traded, and then more NFL stuff happens.
Just when you think it's a downtime.
Kirk, just crazy.
All of them.
Just crazy. But so hopefully Dom will be back next week. We can't promise that for sure. But Spotlight might be back next week. Don't know for sure yet. It might be back
We're going to be
next week.
cramming to record some of those soon since our schedules are going to be opening up again. So.
Yep. So, so Alex, I threw the ball. I forgot. I did the Connor Joe demonstration.
Did you make it the last time I was here? I think you missed by about
a
foot.
Yeah.
You were close.
If I remember, I probably will forget. Put it like on this corner if he was close or not. The last time Isaac was here.
Oh yeah, instant replay. Over that
right
side.
there. Yeah, somewhere there. All right, go ahead.
Good night, America.
Oh, there we go.